Hey guys, Adam from Equip to Endure here with Mr. Dan Eastland of the E2E podcast and Dogwood Custom Knives. Or do you want me to do that the other way? We have you now.
You do.
You're ours.
You own me.
Well, Dan, you just got back from Columbia?
I did.
And we're not talking about Maryland, Ohio, or South Carolina.
Yeah, I went deep, deep south this
That's
time.
right. That's right. On the Amazon River. Not Amazon.com, which is your normal stomping grounds.
Well, and there was some confusion. I was buying Star Food in the grocery store. I get addicted to it down there.
Mm-hmm.
And a woman was asking me about how you eat it at the checkout and that sort of thing. And I was explained that I'd gotten hooked on it when I was down in the Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, "Oh, you worked for Amazon?" I said, it wasn't worth it. I just said, yes, I did.
I'm going to jump right in, man, because this bad boy. And for you guys, Dan took down one of our cameras, got I think it's like 700 gigs worth of footage.
Yeah, I had some help on that as
Yeah.
well.
So, of course, Joe Flowers is down there, and who else was helping you out?
Andy Tran.
Oh, yeah, from Enter Bark.
Yeah.
So
it was really great meeting him. He's
awesome.
He's a kid with some potential.
Awesome. But speaking of potential,
yeah.
So we'll have to zoom in a little bit later to get some. Well, don't even worry, guys. I'm gonna have so much footage of this thing. I don't have to zoom in at it right now. Maybe I'll cut in some scene. But I will give this to you and let you talk about that.
Thank you. This is the Bagheera.
Mm-hmm. Which means what?
You know, I'm torn between telling people and making them go look it up.
Okay.
Because it's a literary reference.
Okay. Is that from Jungle Book?
Yes.
Okay. Let's go ahead and tell people.
Okay. Yeah. It was the panther from the Jungle Book.
Yeah.
So.
Was he a panther or a jaguar?
He was a black jaguar.
Okay.
So.
Panther still works?
Yeah.
Okay. We're gonna go forward with that.
It sounds cooler when you say panther.
It does.
My grandfather brought back an old French engineer's machete from World War II.
Okay.
And that was in hunting camp. That was next to the kindling pile. I mean, that was just the workhorse chopper.
Uh-huh.
And I'd always liked the look of it. So when I decided I was going to try a machete, I started there. Man, the thing is a beast. It's heavy. It's awkward. It's thick. So I started working back from that and applying some of my philosophy on thinner, lighter blades.
Mm-hmm.
And I came out with, depending on who you ask, Bolo, Golok.
Yeah, a little Golok in there.
Yeah. Like so many dogwoods, it's a bit of a bastard child.
Yeah, a little hybrid.
Hybrid, yes.
Hybrid would be better.
Yeah, lots of hybrid vigor in here.
There you go. Now a dog reference.
Yeah.
There you go. All right.
Dogwood.
See what we're doing
mix
there.
it up.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Went with 3/30 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
All
right, you've held it long enough. Give it back to me. But keep on going.
I am really loving 3/30 seconds as just a go-to thickness.
Yeah.
It's light. It's nimble.
But it's got enough forward weight too. And I've already seen you out there giving it some work.
Yeah, it's the tip heavy balance. It's got that curvature in the belly that actually gives a mechanical advantage when it's cutting.
Yep.
I did a few in the field modifications to the grind.
Mm-hmm.
Started out with a convex grind with a fairly significant secondary bevel.
Mm-hmm.
And what we found was it was unstoppable for heavy chopping.
Yeah.
It held an edge forever. But a lot of the machete work in the jungle it's the snap of the wrist.
Yeah.
Your elbow never moves and you're just clearing brush. And for those little snap cuts,
popping it,
the thick secondary bevel would hang up.
Gotcha.
So I took a file to it, stripped out that secondary bevel, raised it a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Still with the convex and a little secondary, it's still a nice beefy edge.
Mm-hmm.
It'll take a beating, but you don't get all that drag when you're doing snap cuts now.
Mm-hmm.
So now it'll slash, it'll slice, it'll chop.
And it is a mean looking blade. One thing I noticed is a little bit different from most of your dogwoods is you went a little bit fatter back here, which is great. So you have a little bit more resistance. But most time with these choppers, you're going to be in those first two fingers anyway.
Well,
so
my thinking was, as you said, that typical two finger. Most of my chopping is done right there.
Yeah.
I left this a little thicker than usual. It's still small enough that you can get a good grip, but if you want to slide back and use some leverage, the grip it's almost a hand and a half or two.
Yeah.
By leaving that meat back here, you can still get a solid grip, or you can choke up and go with the typical 2 finger.
Now you have 2 holes in there for different ways to hang the lanyard. So you can do a front hanging lanyard or a rear hanging lanyard.
I was always uncomfortable with a rear lanyard because if it slips out of your hand, it's going to pendulum back to you.
Yep.
By having the forward lanyard, it's less likely to come back at you.
Yeah.
I'm going to change that hole a little bit.
Yeah.
This was a prototype.
A little too close to the plunge there.
Yep. So I'm going to move it back a little bit. But other than that, when the guide wanted to borrow a machete,
yeah,
this is the one that he would borrow.
Now, one interesting thing about the natives down there is they only put an edge on the first 4 inches near the tip.
Yeah, they did give me a hard time about what they referred to as a dangerous grind.
Yeah.
Or a woodcutter's grind.
Yep.
Down there, the woodcutters will sharpen all the way back.
Yeah.
Because they'll use the machete as a strike line. But typically, they only sharpen about half the distance of the blade.
Yeah.
Because where North Americans, to do fine work, will bring the work close to the handle.
Yeah. That's why we put finger choils and silly stuff to get balance up there.
By leaving this dull, they'll just reach up and grab the blade here.
Yeah.
And work it like a knife with a very long handle.
Yep.
So they did give me a hard time, and every time I handed it to them, I had to remind them.
Yeah.
And they did not use it very often for a lot of the small tasks.
Yeah.
Because their reflex, their entire life is to grab here.
Yeah. And you're talking about people who've been using machetes since they were like 4 years old.
Typically, they get their first machete when they're about 4 or 5.
Yeah.
And they use it every day for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
At one point, I looked over and saw the cook using a machete to carve cooking instruments that they then used to cook a meal that day.
Yeah.
And I think what I've decided, well, I don't think what I've decided. What I have decided is,
be more decisive.
I'm going to offer 2 separate grinds. I'm going to offer the North American grind, which is like this, sharpened all the way down.
Yeah.
And then either a jungle or a South American grind where there'll be a bevel here,
Yeah.
but it'll be dull.
Yeah.
And I'll do the traditional, 4 to 6 inches sharpened from the edge.
Yeah.
For those that want to try that technique, I've got almost 40 years of experience using a blade in the North American style.
Yeah.
So I'm just more comfortable that way.
Yeah.
But I want to give people the option, both internationally and here in the States, to have a grind that they can safely work in the South American tradition.
I mean, it's a pretty interesting concept. I'm not a huge machete guy because I don't really need a machete around here. But I'd almost probably go with the South America, so I can start training in that, type of style if I was going to, go all in. So that's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
The other thing that I noticed is they could start batoning. They'd start the cut for a baton with the edge.
Yeah.
And then they'd pull it out and put that blunt edge in, so that they still had plenty of blade hanging over to baton with.
Yeah.
So they would just strike with the sharp edge and then move the dull edge in, and they could still baton with it dull back here.
Yeah, absolutely. You're still going to have that wedge. Yeah. So you do have another prototype.
I do.
This one has got a fancy South American-made native sheath.
Yeah. Well, you can tell which one I carried the most.
Yeah. This one is definitely still shinier.
And this is the Baloo.
Okay. Which means bear.
Correct. As you'll know, kind of like the grizzly, it's got this funky little swell at the tip, and that has the same principle.
That's probably a little bit better for the draw cuts, right?
Somewhat. In both of these cases, they work well with a draw. This curvature back here is a real comfortable place to wrap your hand. This, you're right. That curvature, it's a lot more comfortable to grip.
A lot more meat.
And they both have gotten this tip weight by different means.
Yeah.
This, you'll notice, it's got less of that curvature in the belly.
Yeah.
It's more the traditional flat. Yeah. So, since I didn't have that curvature to work with, I just made the tip heavier.
Gotcha.
And that's how I get that tip heavy cut efficiency.
So this cut mustard, or are you going to bring this as a model, or is this probably going to go back into the design pile?
This actually worked so well that I'm going to bring this one out as well.
Okay.
It was interesting. This machete is like being the second fastest guy in the state.
Yeah.
And he's on the same team as the fastest guy in the state.
I'm tracking.
Everybody that used it said that they said, "Oh man, this is great. I really like this." And then they'd use the other one and go,
I think I like the handle on that one on the other one better than this one, but that's probably more.
I'm going to add some length to this handle.
Yeah.
Again, one of the things that I was testing is not just blade shape, it was grind shape, it was handle configuration.
And what better way to test it? How many days were you in the jungle?
14 days.
There you go.
Yeah, and we very quickly we lived on these.
Yeah.
But the tip on this one, it's easier to drill with this.
Yeah.
You can do a little more of the woodcrafty tasks with this machete shape.
Mm-hmm.
Partially because the curvature, with it being a flat blade, it's easier to work with in some ways.
Yeah.
And the tip gives you some advantages.
Nice.
So it's, I mean,
what did the guys think of the Firefly?
They were blown away.
Really?
One of the best compliments I got was when one of the guides said thank you and just walked away. And I started to say, and the translator said, yeah, he knows. Because down there they've just now started doing bright handles.
Yeah.
And I was amazed. They preached to us, set your machete down against a tree, edge towards the tree.
Okay.
And absolutely just hammered that into our heads. And you quickly learn the first time you set the machete down, because this, like you said, this is pretty shiny.
Yeah.
The blade's in there patina in days, if not hours. So very quickly you wind up with a patinaed blade and a dark handle.
Yeah.
You set it down in that leaf clutter, and some of that leaf clutter is 6 inches thick.
Oh, it's gone.
Yeah. And you set it right down there, but you're on your hands and knees trying to find it. So the bright handle was a huge success. And the Firefly stays bright during the day.
Yeah.
But in that low light, when it starts to glow, it was great.
That's awesome.
And when we were getting up early in the morning, because if we were going to go out and do tasks and we're starting early in the morning, I'd lean up out of my hammock. There's my machete, and attached to it is my haversack. Boom! I'm on my feet. I grab my stuff. I'm on the way.
Because because of the canopy, the light isn't. I mean, it's bright when it's bright, but it's dark when it's dark.
Yeah, it gets dark early.
Yeah. And
gets light late.
Yeah.
I really didn't appreciate what triple canopy really is. We would get some just pounding rainstorms.
Yeah.
And there would be flooding just down the hill from us, but you would barely get wet because the water was being so dispersed coming through the canopy.
Yeah. That's pretty awesome.
The other thing that went well that I think I'm going to start using all of the machetes is the tubes.
Yeah.
It just gives you a lot. It gives you a lot of choices on how you want to put
your lanyard.
Yep.
It's a beautiful piece. Now this is all, both of these 01?
Yeah. Typically they're 1075.
That speaks a lot. I mean, 01 is not a stainless steel.
No.
But I mean, you had this in the jungle for 14 days, and that's pretty clean for 14 days in the jungle.
No, the neat thing about the jungle is there's no rocks.
Yeah.
None. So if your blade starts to get a little funky, you just walk down by the water.
Get some sand.
And just start chopping the sandbank.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to hit a rock. But
and we got some videos on that, guys, so stand by.
Yeah, we learned to sharpen. Well, we learned to clean with sand and clay.
Yeah.
We learned to sharpen. You find a log, you mix some sand and clay together, rub it on the log, and you could draw almost a razor's edge.
Nice. Very cool. Well, let's talk about some other blades, man.
Yep.